Hey, welcome to Web Page Development 1, WEBD125. I wanted to spend a few minutes just helping you get set up so you can be successful in the class. There's a few things that I wanted to do, and that's first to help you get a code editor installed. The code editor is just like a notepad editor. It's an editor, text editor, where you're going to be creating your web pages. So we're going to install that. Then we're going to install FileZilla. FileZilla is an application that allows you to transfer files from one computer to another. The next thing we'll get configured is Codepen.io. Codepen.io is a website. So we're going to create an account there. And this is a really great resource where you can create HTML and CSS and share it with your instructor and your peers. The next thing is Coton. Coton is a web server where you're going to be hosting your web pages. So you're going to actually create a web page and put it on the internet. Coton is a repository for your web pages and your CSS. W3 Schools is a really good resource for learning HTML and CSS. I'm not going to show it to you now, but you can look at that at your leisure. The next thing is Chrome Browser. Browser is an application to view web pages. So right now I'm using Chrome Browser. There's a lot of other browsers out there like Edge and Firefox, but I highly recommend everybody in the class stick with Chrome. And that's it. That's what we need to get configured for this class. So let's get started and look at the code editor. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is install sublinetext. That's our editor. So you can just click sublinetext, and then based on what type of computer you're using, you want to click the install application. So I have a Windows 64-bit computer. So I click the link. It's going to download the install. So once this is done, I just double-click it and install the application, and I'll have sublinetext installed. Okay, so I've got sublinetext installed. So the next thing I want to do is I want to launch the editor. So I already have it up and running, but what I'm going to do is close it, then right down here in my Windows Start menu, I'm going to type sublinetext, and it shows up. So now I've got it up and running, and I'm going to jump a little bit ahead into week 2, and I want to create a basic web page. So you don't have to follow this step if you don't want to, but I want to show the structure of a web page because this is important. It's something you're going to be using the rest of the semester. So the first line I have is doc type, and that tells the browser that I'm using HTML5. The next thing I want to do is add an HTML tag. Normally, whenever you have a begin tag, you have an end tag. So this is my web page. Everything in here is my web page. The next thing I have is there's two important required elements, a head and a body. The head, information inside the head, is information about your web page. So anything inside the head does not appear inside the browser body, the web page. Inside the body is your actual web page. So in the head, I'm going to have a title. Nope, not a time, but a title. Let's try this again. I'll call it my title. And then in here, I'm going to create a paragraph element, which we'll talk more about in upcoming weeks. Hello world. So I just created my very first web page. Anytime you create a web page, you want to validate it to make sure that it's a valid web page. But before I do that, I want to save it. So I'm going to say File, Save As, save it to my Documents folder, and I'm going to call it index.html. I'll use this one. And here I have my first web page. To validate your web page, you want to go to validator.w3.org. There's a couple different ways you can do it, but I'm going to validate it by direct input. I'll copy my HTML in here, I'll check it, and I have no errors. So this should always be green for you. If you have red or if you have errors, You should always fix them before you upload your assignment to Canvas. The next thing I want to do is view my web page. So here I am in Windows Explorer. I'm browsing to where my file is, and notice it says HTML file. So I double click it. It's launching it in Edge, which is my default browser, which I should really change, and it says Hello World. So I'm going to copy that, and instead I'm going to go to Google Chrome. I'll paste in my URL, and there's my web page. One of the things that I highly recommend that you use in the future is Google Developer Tools. So you can go here, More Tools, Developer Tools, and then on the right you can debug your website. So I can select this guy, click on my element, and it shows it's a paragraph Hello World. So we're going to use this a lot in the future. Google Chrome Developer Tools, great for debugging your website. So the next thing you want to do is download FileZilla client. So go to filezilla.project.org, download FileZilla client. It's going to download an executable. Once that executable is downloaded, you double click it, run it, install it. Once that's installed, you'll get something like this on your shortcut, FileZilla client. So I'm going to double click it. And now I am ready to transfer my web page from the client, my computer, to the server. Okay, this is FileZilla. There's a couple panes here, or a few panes here that I want to describe that are really important. There's 4 panes. There's 2 on the left, 2 on the right. The 2 on the left is the client. The 2 on the right is the server. The 2 on the top are your directory listings. The 2 on the bottom are the contents of those directory listings. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is connect. So in Coton, in Canvas, you'll see some detailed connection instructions. But what I did is I connected a site in Site Manager. So you should have something like this once you set it up. It's coton.champlain.edu. FTP, require implicit FTP over TLS, very important. Ask for password, this is my user account. So I'm going to click connect. It's going to prompt me for my password. And I just connected. So this is WEBD12540A. Our class is different than this. But on the top is the directory. On the bottom is the contents of that directory. So what I want to do is I want to go to where my file is located on the client, which is in C:\users. So it's C:\users, Steve, documents. So this is the directory. Below that are the contents of that directory. So I want to transfer index.html. Okay, so now what I did on the right is I selected WEBD12540A, my account, and I created a folder HTML. There's a couple different ways that you can create the folders. You could just right-click here in your directory and say Create Directory. So you might want to go to your account, right-click, say Create Directory, and then create a CSS, an HTML, and an images folder. So I double-clicked HTML. Remember, the top pane is the directory listing. The bottom pane are the contents of that folder, of that directory. So I have nothing in HTML. So to transfer index.html from the client to the server, I just drag and drop it. And now index.html actually exists on a web server. So now let's access that through the internet. Okay, your folder directory listing is going to be a little bit different than me. You're going to have like a My Site folder. I don't have that since I'm an instructor. So now let's go to our browser, and here is the URL for me. So our URL is going to be different. It's not 40A. So coton.champlain.edu, WEBD12540A, my user account, my folder, and then here's index.html. I didn't have to specify index.html since that's the default file extension, default file name too. All right, so there we go. We now have our web page accessible on the internet. Okay, one of the last things I want you to do is go to codepen.io and create an account. So here I've created my account. I can log in. I want you to sign up, and then once you sign up, you can log in, and then you can create a page to share with everybody. Okay, so I'm going to click Create. I'm going to say a new pen, and now I could create something like Hello World, and then down below shows what it's going to look like. And then I could style this, so this is getting a little bit more advanced than the first week. And I could say color red. And now my color is red. Now if I wanted to share this with the class, I would click Save. I get this unique URL, and then I could share that with the class. So let's say, for example, you're doing an assignment, you're really stuck, you need some help. You could post your code to codepen.io, save it, take this URL, and either email it to me or post it on a forum and ask help from your peers. This is a great resource where we can share information. Okay, so let's just take a look and make sure that we cover everything. So we have our code editor, sublinetext. We installed FileZilla. We can transfer files back and forth between our client and our server. We went on to Codepen.io, and we went on to Coton, and we are running our Chrome browser. So I think you're all set. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or your peers in the class. Have fun, and I'm really looking forward to this class.